Hello and welcome back to another week here at the Damage Report in the zone of American politics. It's not where we'd prefer to be, but it's where we're at. Thankfully, we're not alone. We've got Francesca Fiorentini. How's it going, Francesca?
Happy Monday.
That was either a good vampire or Natasha Lyonne.
Correction, that was a Bernie Sanders and giving the same energy that he says happy birthday.
That's true.
Happy Monday.
It's good. I think it was a better Natasha Lyonne though. But anyway, we'll check. But it was good either way. Russian Doll. Everyone go watch it if you haven't already. It's good. I'm gonna rewatch it soon. Anyway, Francesca, always glad to have you here. Who wants to greet a Monday without Francesca? Anyway, glad to have you here. Hear that you had an exciting episode of your show just yesterday.
Yeah, it was great. I'll have a better take on all of the same topics in the next hour.
They cannot be all the same. I won't allow it. And by the way, you are going to be appearing on the Young Turks today, right?
Yeah, it's a super fantastic Monday. So
geez,
don't go nowhere.
Yeah, so if you'd like to see Francesca, stick around here. If you'd like to see what's left of Francesca, she'll be on the Young Turks later on. They're gonna prop her up. Tuxedo Chitty is just gonna be propping up with tiny paws.
Oh, anyway. Yes, and in between, you can watch the show from the Bitchuation room on my YouTube channel /FrannyFio.
Exactly, with one Kenneth Klippenstein. Whose day has certainly come. He's been doing some great work on the Amazon story. They had to finally admit that, oh yeah, I guess the P thing did happen. Well, what a goof, we forgot. We totally checked before saying it was untrue and smearing our opponents as liars and dupes. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. There are a lot of things that we are gonna be talking about. So stick around if you'd like discussions about whether people will be able to vote in the future, who is defending Matt Gaetz, and perhaps more importantly, who's not. We've got an Uprising, a jail in St. Louis, interesting stuff there. And hey, what do you know? Trump was robbing his followers again. So that should be fun. We've got all that and more. So regardless of what platform you're on, thank you for being here. We really do appreciate it. And if you could hit the like button and share the stream, that would be great so that people know that the stream is live. And as we go through this hour, we can of course interact if you'd like via tweets, texts, chats, DMs, I don't know. Make a digital message and send it to us somehow and we'll probably see it. And with that said, Francesca, you wanna jump into this thing?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay. So let's run through the chain of events. The Georgia elections didn't go well for the Republicans. So they decided to pass a bill making it more difficult for people to vote. And then some corporations, I guess driven by the fact that people don't like these attacks against democracy and they want to stand with where the consumers are, have stood against those bills. So you have companies like Delta and Coke putting out messages against this voting suppression bill. You also have the MLB deciding that they're gonna take away the, I'm gonna say all-star game from Georgia. And that is not okay from the point of view of Republicans, because all of these corporations have been saying things that are incorrect politically and they need to be struck down as a result of it. So here is the governor of Georgia speaking out against all of this political speech that he's found so inconvenient.
Yesterday, Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community. In the middle of a pandemic, Major League Baseball put the wishes of Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden ahead of the economic well-being of hard-working Georgians who are counting on the All-Star game for a paycheck. Georgians and all Americans should know what this decision means. It means cancel culture and partisan activists are coming for your business. They're coming for your game or event in your hometown. And they're coming to cancel everything from sports to how you make a living. And they will stop at nothing to silence all of us.
Okay, so one of two things is happening there. Either TDR has canceled his face Or he posted that on Instagram showing support for Black Lives Matter. It's probably not the second one, honestly. Anyway, you don't need to see him. You know what he looks like, and nobody likes it. So there, he's saying that, okay, there's them wanting people to not vote, which is its own form of cancel culture, but for some reason doesn't qualify. And there's the corporation saying, hey, we want consumers to know we think voting is good. That's cancel culture to the right, Francesca. It doesn't make any sense to me. I guess when you pretend that your party is in favor of free speech and political expression and you're not, you're gonna sort of end up in these awkward, contorted places. But this seems like a hard sell to imply that a corporation saying what it either believes or more likely thinks consumers believe, that is cancel culture. I don't understand.
Yes, this is going to be the next 4 to 20 years of our lives talking about cancel culture. Just I just can't wait. I see the future. I see the grave of cancel culture. I lay a flower on it, and we never have to talk about it again. But this is, of course, now the culture war, and the only thing I want to cancel is the culture war. But here we are. It's a merry-go-round, and that's exactly right. Like the MLB, first of all, made its own damn mind up. Like they were not told by Stacey Abrams or Joe Biden. They're not, driven by anything. They're driven by money. And it's a bad look to put your game in a place that is like systematically disenfranchising a whole lot of Black and brown people.
Yep.
Who, by the way, are our baseball consumers, right? They like the MLB. And it's not a good look for you. These are also people you're trying to sell ads to in commercial breaks. So like, look, the MLB is not a hero here, but they don't want drama. They don't want to be in a place that is politicized, right? Especially in the year 2021, right? We're not somehow they're trying to drag us back. GOP in Georgia are trying to drag us back to Jim Crow era, and so like by actually continuing the game, you are making a political statement. So. And I know we're gonna get into like whether or not that is a good thing to boycott the state. And I think there's a really interesting debate happening around that.
Sure.
But Kemp, honey, this is what's gonna happen. Like you wanna basically like put your talons in your democracy and completely contort it so that you win every single time and change the rules when you don't win, then suffer the consequences.
Yeah. Exactly, and yeah, I'm glad that you alluded to that. There's a debate about what the correct tactics should be, but you either believe that individuals and corporations can express things or not. I mean, here, we're not even talking about like huge amounts of unregulated campaign contributions. Like, I think we should have that conversation. Here, it's just like Coke put out a statement. You either think the corporations can do that or should do that, or you don't. So which is it? Is Coke fascist because they say, hey, people seem to like voting, so we're gonna be in favor of voting, or not? You liked Goya when they were with Trump. That was a corporation. Why didn't they keep their beans out of our politics? No, you liked it then. You like his pillow. He's all up in politics. So which is it? Should corporations be in politics or not? Personally, I say, let's just simplify things and get them all out of here. But that said, whether they're investing money in politics or not, they definitely want to be seen to be on the side of the people, and the people are on the side of the people voting. This shouldn't be a surprise. Now, it's not just about cancel culture, it's also about Stacey Abrams. He brought her up. Notably, she's a critic of the law, but she's pushed back on calls for sports leagues and corporations to boycott the state. She's not even necessarily in favor of it.
Exactly.
She said on Friday that she was disappointed that baseball officials had pulled the All-Star game, but she was proud of their stance on voting rights. So he says she's responsible for it when she's literally advocating for them to not do it. But you can, like, I guess you could forgive him since I'm sure he didn't look. He just thinks everything bad. That's gotta be Stacey Abrams. It wasn't enough that he cheated her out of an election win. Now he's got to hound her for literally years.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, the whole thing, it really just It's so nonsensical. It's so like they don't even have to pretend that their concept of cancel culture is based on anything. It is just what helps us right now. What makes us seem good right now. We like that. And if it's inconvenient later, we dispense it. Doesn't matter. Our followers will never call us out on that. We'll just do it. It'll be great.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that like Coke and Delta and the MLB, they did not do this out of the goodness of their hearts. They don't care. They don't have hearts. They're money grubbing stock buyback corporations that steal water resources from the world's population to bottle fizzy, overly sugary drinks. Like these are not the good guys. So what does that tell you about where we are in American history when the not good guys, the middle of the road, the most middle of the road, safe corporate brand is saying, nah, don't like it, not gonna touch it, don't like this voting law. It tells you that it's that actually what you're doing is controversial and that voting is non-controversial, that voting rights are non-controversial rights, right? This is the middle of the road. And so what side are Republicans on? 100 years ago. Just Jim Crow South, yes.
Yeah.
Like so far behind where we need to be. And so I know we're gonna talk about Trump, but like, just remember that. These aren't the heroes, they're the middle of the road towers. And Republicans are not even on board with that.
Yeah. Well, look, let's catch up with some others because some of the worst people lining up is always noteworthy, I think. The whole Georgia bill thing, the corporation speaking out against it was an opportunity for Republicans to really take a long, hard look at what cancel culture is and what political speech they think is acceptable. Supposedly it was all of it. They're steamrolling right past that with Mitch McConnell saying, parts of the private sector keep dabbling and behaving like a woke parallel government. Corporations will invite serious consequences if they become a vehicle for far-left mobs to hijack our country from outside the constitutional order. First of all, Mitch McConnell, literally never use the term woke, please. That goes for most people, but especially you, don't say it. God, I hate how that's been co-opted by the right. Yes, they're a parallel government and they're hijacking our country from outside the constitutional order. That's been happening recently. And it's Coke that's doing it. It's not mobs of screaming people with helmets with horns pooping on the floor of the House. It's none of that. It's not sending slates of alternate electors. It's not dozens and dozens of Republican senators and Congress people voting to overturn an election. Nope, it's Coke. So there's that. Ben Shapiro, intellectual gladiator, is moving right past the obvious hypocrisy here, saying, I'm not a fan of boycotts at all, but there is only one thing worse than threatening to use political nuclear weapons, unilaterally disarming while the other side uses with political nuclear weapons. It's either mutually assured destruction or defeat, pick. So like Delta putting out a statement saying, hey, stop suppressing people is a nuclear weapon. By the way, Jason Campbell points out on Twitter that back in 2019, he said, it's better for the country if people don't boycott businesses that donate to Nazi organizations. So sometimes boycotts are okay, sometimes not. It really depends. Nazis, not so bad. Coke, anyway. We have a little bit more, but I want to give you a chance, Francesca. What do you think of them?
I do not know what Ben Shapiro is talking about. I literally, like, someone needs to
nuclear weapons.
Yeah, there needs to be like a translator, like a Google Translate, but for like far right talking points that I don't understand, and just spit out and be like, I hate people of color. Like that's all it is. And yeah, back to you saying woke and people saying woke. Just again, put that into the translator and it comes out as black people. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. So every time you hear that, just hear like black people who want civil rights, to vote, to not be shot dead, to like own a home, those kinds of things. But yeah, I think the boycott question is a really interesting one. I mean, Ilhan Omar has said that it has been effective in the past, and despite Stacey Abrams saying that she prefers that companies would not boycott, because remember, Delta and Coke have not boycotted the state, but MLB and some Hollywood directors are. But Ilhan Omar is saying, look, it's been successful in the past, and in fact, in this country, looking at Jim Crow South, like that was the civil rights movement, was boycotting companies, right? It was walking to work instead of taking a bus where you had to sit in the back. That's the bread and butter of so much of these movements. And so while I'm torn because I hate the idea that, that workers, not all of whom are Republican, of course, nor do I think people should be punished just because they are gonna lose out on work. I'm also like, you have to stick it to these Republicans who've made their state, for better or worse, trying to be so cozy with business. I mean, they've got tax breaks for businesses, which I'm not necessarily in agreement with, but I don't know. I do think corporations should they always wield their power for bad. They always are like, who can give me a better tax break? Where can I go? So why not sometimes wield that for good to show that there will be consequences for your crap politics?
Totally. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, the idea that like businesses could lose out on business that they might have been expecting for a while, especially coming after the pandemic. I hate it. I don't know. People are desperate. Like we finally had an election that was like somewhat reflective of maybe this is what like the actual demographic and political breakdown of the state would produce in terms of representation. And then they immediately threw it in the garbage. And we might not have it again for decades, even with the great work of activist groups and all of that. So yeah, people are gonna try a lot of different tactics. Now, it's come to this. Weighing in, and also weighing in on the voter fraud, voter suppression discussion going on about corporations in Georgia, all of that. The former president decided to post a frantic, maddening statement. We're not gonna read the whole thing, but we're gonna read parts of it. Now, it goes like this, and this is totally not a tweet. It's a formal presidential statement. For years, the radical left Democrats have played dirty by boycotting products when anything from that company is done or stated in any way that offends them. I'm gonna stop right there. Everyone does that. Everyone sometimes doesn't like things. And when they don't like it, they say something or they don't support something. That's not a liberal thing. That's not a conservative thing. That's just a thing. They were boycotting Keurig, and everybody boycotts stuff.
Remember the Nike shoe? Remember when white guys were burning their shoes?
Yeah, and now they're doing it again because there's blood in their shoes. So they want to boycott Nike, who didn't even make the shoes. They're boycotting companies that don't make things that irritate them. So anyway, everybody does that. Now they are going big time with woke cancel culture and our sacred election. Stop saying sacred, dude. It's Easter, and this is what you're talking about. The last thing you're worried about is the sacred. It is finally time for Republicans and conservatives to fight back. We have more people than they do by far, except when it comes to votes. Boycott Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, JP Morgan Chase. Hey, that's actually a good one. I'm pro-Trump now. Viacom, CBS, Citigroup, Cisco, UPS, and Merck, everyone. Don't go back to their products until they relent. We can play the game better than them. They didn't play the game better. They didn't even get I just don't. I'm gonna skip to the end. After all of that, happy Easter. This man is just filled with faith and the spirit of the Lord. Happy Easter. Anyway, so hey, what do you know? He's in favor of boycotting everyone. I guess all of those corporations have made statements about this. I haven't even seen some of these, but he's tracked them down because there's nothing he likes better than compiling a list of enemies.
Trump is kind of, his last statement was on Friday. He disappeared for 3 days. He's resurrected as a zombie. And here he is. Happy Easter. Can you imagine? Jesus comes back. Anyway, the radical left. You're just like, no.
That game sucked. It was the worst. There were rats nipping at my heels. Oh, happy Easter.
I was canceled.
Judas, you totally canceled me, you dick. Anyway.
It's just so like I hate all these corporations too, like you're saying, but I'm like, yeah, let's take our money and move it from Chase into credit unions and community banking and all those things.
Yeah.
And he's like, anyone want to loan me some money? Like Deutsche Bank? No, oh, you're in deep crap because of me. Okay, like where are they going? They're just inventing. They've boycotted everything at this point. Are we still boycotting the NFL? I feel like that's still a thing we're still doing.
There's not going to be any sports left. There's not going to be any left. Okay, let's switch it up though. They're bad, obviously. Not that the people about to turn to we have much higher expectations for, but perhaps we should be able to. As this voting rights debate continues, right now focused on Georgia, but understand that like Texas is passing bills like that. We're gonna be seeing this in Arizona, a number of other states. How the media covers this, I think, is gonna be very important. What lesson is the American people going to learn from this debate? And I already have reasons to worry. The New York Times had like a sub headline saying that this debate over voting rights was pitting Democrats versus populist Republicans.
Jesus.
What does that have to do with populism, trying to stop people from voting? That is not how any of that's supposed to work. Man, does that word have no meaning anymore. And then we have little thought experiments. So I believe this is Allison Camerota. Let's take a look at her hypothesizing about potentially one of the silver linings of the Georgia bill.
The fiction, okay, of vast voting fraud is what this is predicated on. But Republicans, polling suggests, believe this. Believe that there has been vast voting fraud. As you know, President Trump talked about it ad nauseum. And so is there some potential upside to some of these laws that it will assuage the anxiety of Republicans?
Oh God, oh God.
He said yes, by the way. And then the co-host later on was like, it's a lie though. You don't have to assuage a lie, which, yeah, that should be clear. They believe it. They don't. What does belief mean? We talk about this a lot on this show for some reason. You could believe that voting fraud is happening because you keep seeing it. You see lots of suspicious stuff. You come across issues registering yourself, all of that. You could be gathering evidence, or you could believe it because the same people who passed the bill told you it happened. And that's it. And it doesn't matter how many court cases fail, none of that. No matter how many experts testify, you believe it because the people who are lying to you lied to you. That's it.
This was the whole problem, I think, with Trumpism and the media, because especially when it comes to elections, they love to like sit in a diner and talk to like regular old Joe. And like technically that is, I would argue, I used to think, better than just referring to pundits, like talk to actual people, see what they think, and then you uncritically are putting people on the mic who are like, I believe that Q is inhabiting my body, using my NutriBullet, and you're like, wait, okay, maybe we should move to somebody else now and not talk. But like, that's the thing is like, well, that's what's out there, and it's this like vicious cycle of, well, this is what people believe, so we have to cater to them, and the both sidesism that that establishment media is so obsessed with, without informing. They don't do that much lots of reporting, not as much informing.
That's true. Yeah, this is not if people believe it, but like your segment is not intentionally, but it is contributing to confusion. It's kicking up like dirt. And so like we all aren't really sure. No, we're all sure. It was a secure election, fair election. Everybody involved in the election said that. At the time, Republicans were saying that. Those who were actually managing the election, including in Georgia. There should be no doubt about that. But there is doubt about that because of all the lying, and there will continue to be doubt about it because people won't call it like it is. This is a knee-jerk reaction to losing an election by the losing side to try to make it less likely that they lose in the future by weeding out as many voters as possible.
What she's asking is, do the jangly keys help distract them? Or do they like the bright colors, or they like the sounds that the jangly keys make? And it's like, I guess, yeah, they're momentarily distracted.
Yeah.
I wish it were a decoy bill. You know what I mean? If there was like some sort of decoy, there were a decoy state. I mean, it's really Florida. We could just send everyone to.
Unfortunately, no, it's all too real. And law, at least for now, will follow. Like, as soon as like there's a court challenge, we're gonna be following it. But as of right now, it's very real. Okay, so we are gonna jump into seeing what's going on with the audience before we jump into our next topic. First of all, a super chat from T-Ness who says Matt Gaetz looks like a creepy Johnny Bravo with farting preacher hair. Whew, that's specific.
Farting preacher hair.
I don't know what that is. Yoda says, this is about my pre-show. Photo grade 7 out of 10. Unshaved, forced optimism. Fran, sorry you had internet issues last week. Just to reiterate, the Wi-Fi in Costa Rica, 5G, doesn't quit. Check your DMs for those bank statements. That was before stimulus money. Whoa, there's a lot in there. That's a lot. Anywho, okay, thank you though. Zane says happy Easter, Dragon Daddy, and then the message stops. There's nothing else. I don't have to read anything else. Thank you, Zane. Lawrence Wells says hello to you two. Having withdrawals from Fantastic Monday Light last week, our government is trying to curb our protest rights in the UK. All conservatives must be allergic to democracy or something. Yeah, that bill, the new policing bill, is the worst. We might have to meanwhile in this week. May Money into Building says, Fran, you are the bestest of the best. John never tells you. I think he'd be jealous. Happy Monday from the Witch Queen of Oakland Dragon. Hi, John. Francesca, you're the best.
He be jealous. Thank you.
I might.
You. We're gonna have an analyze this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Sea salt chips with a great reference here says Ben Shapiro is a 13-year-old who Zoltar wished just went to be big went terribly, terribly wrong. That's a good one. Okay, Just Freaking Ortega says, John, please help. I need Fran to check her IG messages or just let me know what she wants her diamond paint of. A portrait, TBR logo, or tuxedo chitty. Please, Fran, let me know. So Jess had sent in this amazing artwork she made of a dragon, and she'd like to make one for you if you have a request.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's really cool.
You found it then. I feel like you couldn't find it for a while. Is that the thing that you were looking for?
That might have been yes, for a bit. There were a couple things actually, but so you have a DM about that on IG.
Thank you.
Anyway, and finally, Franklin Sharpslacer says, one thought I bring up, or I oughta, of Gaetz flashing pics to Congress is someone's great granddaughter. One other thing I'm going to announce, I can see we could do with one less sports announcer. Thank you, Franklin. That's a reference to a pre-show story about a high school women's basketball announcer who, when the women kneeled, thought he was on, that his mic was off, but instead called them the N-word multiple times because he thought their protest against racism was pointless. So he called them the N-word multiple times at a high school basketball game. My God, this country we live in. Anyway, over on Twitch, Brandy Lou gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you, Brandy Lou. You're the best, Brandy Lou. Let's see. Black Hat Persian gifted 1 as well. Thank you. Savtat Simcha gifted 1. Thank you. Pinkerbell Pixie subscribed for 9 months. Thank you for that. Bowlman subscribed for 6. Thank you. Something Dragon for 7. Love that name there. Kin of Wolf says, John, your voice scared my cat. No, it wasn't the music. You didn't move until you spoke. What did I do? Sethian Rosen says, I guess Mickey Mouse is the Coke spokesmouse. Was I doing Mickey Mouse? I don't remember that.
You do a great Mickey.
Anyway, thank you, I try. By the way, I want to let you know that we've got a lot more show, but after our show, you know what you have to look forward to? That is Dr. Rashad Ritchie's show, Indisputable, exclusively at twitch.tv/TYT. It's also available on demand for Twitch subscribers. So that will be available right after this show. He talks about the top news stories of the day, reads tweets, engages in debates with both the audience, and he brings on right wingers sometimes. The show is truly indisputable, and you're not gonna wanna miss it. Now that said, let's jump back into the news. Oh, I just saw a comment about that. Thank you, I did. Thank you, Sophie. Anyway, let's jump back into this. Over the weekend, more and more anonymous behind the scenes accounts have come out of Republicans saying that Matt Gaetz is probably not going to survive the number of different scandals that are now engulfing him. The sex trafficking, the use of campaign funds, and then all the sleazy behavior like showing off, apparently without any consent, nude photos of women he'd been with or whatever. What's interesting though is that with all of this going on and this scandal now reaching almost a full week, you know who hasn't spoken out in defense of Matt Gaetz? The guy that Matt Gaetz was more loyal to than perhaps anyone in the country, Donald Trump. According to two people familiar with the matter, Trump has been closely monitoring the scandal. The ex-president has casually quizzed several confidants about what they think of the situation, if there's anything he should do about it. Multiple people close to Trump have flatly advised him to stay out of it, refrain from publicly defending Gaetz, they're telling him, at least for the time being. And two different sources say that in all of the conversations they're aware of, Trump has appeared to ultimately agree with the recommendations to keep quiet. One of the sources added that the former president has lamented that the whole thing seems really bad for Gaetz, while also mentioning that the allegations could be a smear against the Trump uber loyalists. So look, you can have as many sources as you want saying he seems to be accepting the advice. We don't need those sources. It's been almost a week and he hasn't said anything. So by his lack of behavior, he seems to agree with that philosophy. And whether he thinks it's really bad or a smear, which in modern American politics just means an inconvenient thing about you. It's a way of just taking a criticism and saying it's not fair to make it. I don't know. But anyway, Matt Gaetz has lived on Fox News for years defending Trump against every possible scandal, every bit of criticism. And now Matt Gaetz is in the lowest point of his very low life, his darkest moment. And Trump is not repaying his loyalty, not one bit, not in any way that anyone publicly can see. He is just leaving him out there. Thoughts, Francesca? Do you think it's gonna change?
I love it, I love it.
You love it?
I'm just so happy. I hate that guy. Yeah, it's almost like when it comes to Trump and loyalism, it's a one-way street. You know, it's almost
like that.
Weird how he just wants everything to come his way, but he's incapable of, any kind of love or empathy when it comes the other way. Yeah, there is nothing in this for Trump defending Gaetz. If he were still in the White House, of course, why not? You run the table, it's fine. There's nothing. Look, Tucker Carlson's not coming out to defend him. He wants nothing to do with it. Trump doesn't want to talk to him. Who knows if Gaetz is gonna be like, you remember we took that one selfie with that one girl and Nobody wants to touch Gaetz. And this is like, former groper in chief. This is Donald Trump. How many dozens of sexual assault allegations are we running on here? One currently making its way through the courts right now.
Totally.
And I think it speaks to, look, I have thoughts on what's actually gonna happen to Gaetz. I don't see him resigning. I see him potentially even winning re-election if unchallenged. But because I think the only place he's still employable is Congress. Think about it. No one else is gonna employ him except for the voters that he's been duping for years.
What about his dad's car wash or his auto dealership or whatever? He could probably get a job there. I mean, I don't know why you would resign as a Republican. Your voters don't care. They don't care about any of this stuff. A lot of them are just jealous. They wish they could be doing it. And by the way, thank you to Lucid Fox for the raid and for everyone joining us. We're breaking down Matt Gaetz being thrown under the bus by Trump, despite all of his years of loyalty. And Francesca, you pointed out that there's supposed to be honor among thieves in this case, honor among sexual assaulters. So Donald Trump got defended by Matt Gaetz for his many, many sexual assaults, and he's not repaying it. Meanwhile, there is a bit of it. Some of the only people in Congress that have actually spoken out on the record in defense of Matt Gaetz have faced their own stories like this. We have two House Republicans, Judiciary Ranking Republican Jim Jordan, who has himself faced allegations that he ignored serial sexual assault. It's not really a sex scandal, it's an I'm looking the other way as dozens of kids are raped scandal, but you get what I'm saying. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, look, I understand that as part of her deal with Satan, she has to be on the wrong side of literally every issue. And she herself has her own stories that you can Google. It's not a scandal that should matter politically, but it's interesting if nothing else. So they have stood by Matt Gaetz to their credit, but few others are. And it's partially, I think, because everybody hates Matt Gaetz. That's a TV show coming to NBC soon. They really do all hate him, and it looks really bad. And so who wants to leap to the defense of a person who might be facing calls, whether he will resign or not? He might be facing calls to resign fairly soon.
Yeah, I think it is also a win for Republicans like Liz Cheney, who, Matt Gaetz has been trying to like accuse of being, Biden loyalists because they didn't vote against, verifying an election, and like thought the Capitol insurrection was wrong, right? Like, Matt Gaetz was leading this charge. He was like, yeah, it's all about MAGA. We're going forward. Woo, woo, and there's been a rift in the Republican Party. And so, for as inconsequential in terms of if he will resign or not, or if he's reelected, I do think it takes him down a few pegs and a few important pegs if you want a Republican Party that is minimally less nuts. Which I think we all do, even though I believe it's a slippery slope into, crazy. I would prefer them to not want to overturn Democratic elections.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's arguably a good thing if he's sort of sidelined. It clears out a little bit more of the path for Tucker Carlson to become the nominee. Anyway, let's jump immediately into very different news. There's a good chance that over the weekend you saw footage that might look like what we're about to show you at the St. Louis Justice Center, what is being termed an uprising. Take a look at this footage. So you can see there blankets being draped out in a rope, sort of the universal symbol that someone needs help. But there were fires that were lit, windows were broken, obviously. This is the fourth incident at this particular prison, and there's a reason for it. It's not just random, although we don't know exactly how it began. And there's a lot more footage out there. I don't want to glorify and like there's a message behind here more so than a couch being burned or whatever. I don't want to glorify in that, but Missouri House of Representatives Representative Rasheen Aldridge Jr. said those in connection with the protests had two demands: end cash bail and resume speedy and fair court hearings that have been delayed because of the pandemic. She goes on to say that detainees are being held without trial and unable to pay their bail, causing a system that disproportionately puts poor and black people behind bars. If we care about justice, these systems need to change. And this is really like the ultimate collision of multiple different unjust elements of our system, that you have cash bail, that can exist in the first place, that you can be held for months and months and months if you can't make that bail, and that might be dragged out because of a pandemic, that also while you're being held, you have a much better chance of getting and possibly dying from COVID. None of these things individually are acceptable. The confluence of them should be a national outrage, and it's not. And so it's time that there's a focus on it. And these sorts of uprisings, chaos or whatever, does actually put the focus on these issues at long last.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about boycotts earlier. I mean, they're like prison hunger strikes, boycotts, so-called riots have been effective, because they actually get national attention for as, salacious or as like, if something's on fire, then we have to cover it. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't talk about the incredibly broken and inhumane criminal justice system in which people are dying every single day, pandemic or not. But the pandemic specifically has been, are prisoners being prioritized for the vaccine? I don't think so.
Imagine if they were, what the next 6 months of Fox News would be.
Absolutely, and these are people who have not been convicted. These are detainees. This could be unpaid parking tickets, right? Like this could be like, who knows what they are, right? We've got horrible cash bond systems as well in this country. I don't know the laws in Missouri specifically, but yeah, these are folks who cannot pay their bail and now are being in incredibly unsafe situations and being held there. So good on them for doing this. And again, this is when the only time like media outlets actually cover it, when we should be really trying to dismantle these systems altogether. I mean, my brother's a public school teacher and he's going back to school soon, and his class is gonna be like 10 people, 10 kids. And honestly, that's the way classrooms should always be. It's like few kids rather than 25 to 30 kids in a crammed classroom. And you see the same thing in a system like the jail system. Not only are people being held unjustly when they can't pay, but also they're already in cramped quarters, right? And they're already being held against their will. Is it okay to hold people, to have so much overcrowding in jails and prisons across the country, in detention centers as well? Is that humane? I mean, I feel like the pandemic is also really helping us think about what's just a slower burning version of inhumanity.
Exactly. Now, I want to read just a couple of numbers for you. This is information that we covered back in December when the study came out. We've been talking about the conditions in the pandemic during the previous spikes. And let's just note that nothing was done, basically. Like at some point, movies will be made, documentaries, books will be written about all of the failures. And there were many failures in America's response to the pandemic. But what we willingly allowed to happen in state and federal prisons needs to be a part of that conversation.
Yes.
1 in every 5 state and federal prisoners in the US tested positive for the coronavirus. This is as of December, by the way. And we all remember how terrible December and January were. People are still, we've got more than 70,000 cases a day now. So these numbers are outdated, but it's what we have. That is a rate more than 4 times as high as the general population. In some states, more than half of all of the prisoners were infected. At least 275,000 prisoners as of December, again, with more than 1,700 having died, a massive death toll. And Homer Venters, former chief medical officer at Rikers, which is one of the places where initially there were lots of concerns about this, and then everything that was predicted happened, and we just sort of moved on as a country, said that number is a vast undercount. I still encounter prisons and jails where when people get sick, not only are they not tested, but they don't receive care, so they get much sicker than need be. So that 275,000 infections, those are not the number of infections, they're the number of tested infections. Tons of people just got sick, maybe were asymptomatic, or maybe suffered with it, and will suffer the consequences of long COVID for potentially the rest of their life. But their lives were valued so little that they weren't even tested for it, let alone treated. And this is, like with the anti-Asian hate that continues to this day, something that has been talked about from the very beginning, but it was like a monumental task to get people to even pretend to care about it. Anything having to do with prisoners in America, nobody cares what happens. And if you advocate for them to have even basic human dignity or rights, you will be pitched as some sort of villain, in fact, that you want them to get medical care or be able to participate in politics, even insofar as voting, all of that. And that's just what we allow in America. There's almost no debate over it even at this point.
But they're all mass murderers, John. They're all
every one of them.
Every single one of them is a homicidal murder. Oh, wait, no. Sorry, those guys get taken to Burger King, and they probably have a special cell all for themselves. Isn't that funny? I feel like the more dangerous criminals do get like different. I don't know. Aren't they like separated off? Maybe I'm being crazy. I mean,
there's
about that.
There's maximum versus minimum security prisons and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah. It's ridiculous. There's been a lot of good reporting on this. So I think you're absolutely right. We need a reckoning, and it's part of accountability for all of the deaths that have occurred under COVID. And under the previous administration specifically, and this is definitely part of that.
Agreed. Okay, we're gonna check in with the audience, see what's going on before we jump into our next big story, which is going to be the Trump once again blatantly robbing his like most devoted fans of millions and millions and millions of dollars. Anyway, we're gonna go to that in a second. Big A Dragon, thank you for your super sticker. Appreciate that. Very nice of you. Umberto as well. Thank you. Raylon Smith says Franny on Sunday and a double shot Monday. Woot! Yes, everyone's excited. Some scared, exhausted, perhaps, like Francesca, but everyone else is exhausted. Melissa's getting her first dose of vaccine tomorrow in Florida. That's awesome. Hold on. Chris says this money's for Francesca's spot on impression of Vanellope von Schweetz from Wreck-It Ralph last week. I don't remember you doing that. Was it on this show? I like that. That's Sarah Silverman, I believe.
Oh yeah. I was like,
I don't know. Anyway, thank you though. Pete from Oakland says, Missouri is one of the 9 remaining states that hasn't repealed debtors' prisons, and 60% of county revenue in Ferguson comes from civil ordinance fines for crap like mismatched window drapes. Oh God. The real issue is the people kneeling. That's the issue. Anyway, okay, Guillotine Watch Party gifted 1 tier 1 sub to TYT's community. By the way, really fast. So inspired by Anna Kasparian, I've recently got a little bit into woodworking, and I did my first project this weekend. I made a bench, and then I thought, how funny would it be, and how much trouble would I get in with the FBI if I did a live stream of me making something? I'll tell you what it is, and then eventually it's assembled into a guillotine. And that was how the show was taken off the air.
You do need a bench for it. You have to start. That's how.
That's true.
You need to start with the bench.
Should I make the basket that you put? Should I weave a basket?
You gotta weave the basket. See, it's
old school.
It's gotta be a woke guillotine. It's gotta be like Harvest.
By Coke and Delta.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it'll be like a NASCAR. At this point, they're just gonna buy space on that game.
Definitely, because all of these corporations are totally with the people now. God, what a dumb country. Anyway, Eddie O'Donnell, thank you for subscribing on Twitch for the 7th month. Appreciate that. Let's see. Dev of Bar, subscribed for 3 months. Thank you for that. Says, I got my Dragon Squad hoodie and Matt Gaetz is getting destroyed. It's a good day. That's awesome. I'm actually wearing the We Press On. I think it's limited edition, but many of them aren't, including both Damage Report and Dragon Squad. Hoodies, shirts available at Shop TYT. Oh, and we can't show it yet or whatever, but people have been asking for new t-shirts. We've got an awesome variation on one of our previous ones coming up soon. I absolutely love and can't wait to wear. Kurt Burglar, subscribed for 10 months. Thank you for that. Called Jeff Bezos a slimy bastard while giving us his money. Thank you for that. Black Mage is watching TYT on the road from Kansas City to Denver. Thanks for keeping me sane, Black Mage says. Thank you for that. Okay, Depressed Progressive suggests Matt Gaetz is a tool is the name of the show. We could go for that. That cute bird says Q got into my toaster. I don't even remember what that's a reference to, but I like it. And Ladybug Dragon subscribed for 10 months. Thank you for that. And with that, let's jump into the big story of the day. Hold on one sec. I missed Mr. Unknown resubscribed. Thank you, Mr. Unknown. No, there's others too, and I'm reading them all. Just we can't read them all live on air necessarily, but I'm doing my best. Thank you. And with that, let's jump back into the news. Politically, Donald Trump has never really been all that consistent. He was, pro-choice and he's pro-life. He's swapped on a lot of things over the course of his life, but there's one thing he's always been true to. There's always been a core part of him, and that is that he will rob you. And if you love him, he will rob you even more, and he'll appreciate it even more as he does it. So look, this has happened in many different instances, Trump University and every product he's ever made and all of that. But now we've got a story of him bilking his fans for millions of dollars. So it starts back during the closing months of the presidential election when he was facing a cash crunch and getting badly outspent by the Democrats. His campaign had begun last September to set up recurring donations by default for online donors for every week until the election. Contributors had to wade through a fine print disclaimer and manually uncheck a box to opt out. So many people donate to politicians. Many of them don't expect that unless they use Sherlock Holmes level powers of searching, that they might make that same donation every week without knowing it. So let's take a look at how this played out and how bad it actually got for some individuals, because we're not talking about $5 or $10 here. This tactic ensnared scores of unsuspecting Trump loyalists, retirees, military veterans, nurses, experienced political operatives who just got a little bit more experience. Soon, banks and credit card companies were inundated with fraud complaints from the president's own supporters about donations they had not intended to make, sometimes for thousands of dollars. By the way, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of refund requests. So let's give you a couple examples. We have one, Stacey Blatt, who was in hospice care. So it starts off rough. Last September, listening to Rush Limbaugh's dire warnings about how badly Trump's campaign needed money, he went online and chipped in everything he could, $500. It was a big sum for a 63-year-old battling cancer and living in Kansas City on less than $1,000 per month. Now hold on a second, it's gonna get worse, but Trump is a billionaire And this person who's barely like managing to survive is giving way too much of their money. That is devastating. No rich, like we shouldn't have rich people in politics, but if we're gonna have rich people in politics, make them fund their own campaigns. Like working class people have been duped into supporting them, should not be the ones that have to give way too much to help them out. But the 500, which is way too much, apparently wasn't enough for Donald Trump, because that single contribution, and federal records show it was his first ever political contribution, quickly multiplied. Another $500 was withdrawn the next day, then 500 the next week, and every week through mid-October without his knowledge until his bank account had been depleted and frozen. They literally drained him until the bank cut off his accounts. If the bank hadn't cut off his accounts, they would have kept draining him for thousands more dollars. They were only stopped because he had no more blood to give to Donald Trump. Anyway, his utility and rent payments bounced. They soon discovered $3,000 in withdrawals in less than 1 month. And they called their bank to say they were victims of fraud. And they were, but it was worse than they thought. It wasn't a mistake. That was by design. The fraud was Trump's campaign. And they had been ensnared in it because they admired him. They looked up to him. They loved him. They supported him. They had faith in him. And that was not a good idea. Now we've got more, we'll give you more details, but Francesca, what do you think?
When you run the country like a business, makes you rethink business just a little bit. It's devastating. And this is something we cannot forget, because we know that Fox News and all the other OAN and little, spin-offs of Fox News, none of them are gonna cover this. None of them are gonna cover this, but it reminds you of when this guy was in the White House and wanted his supporters to gather during a pandemic to spit on one another and scream, "Make America Great Again," and die and freeze in the cold. Like, he doesn't care about his supporters' lives. He doesn't. And this is one other example of, like, he disrespects them. He thinks they're dumb. He gouge them for all they've got. Also, I'm a billionaire. Also, I'm so self-funded. Now I'm going to cheat you. Like, it makes no sense. And in some way, I feel bad. Obviously, this is an extreme case. You feel bad. But at the same time, look at this man. He's told you over and over again who he is. He doesn't care. He has no scruples. He will walk over your dead body in order to, reach the White House again. Literally. Doesn't care. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we feel bad for them because we're like afflicted by this like empathy or whatever that Trump has never experienced. It's a foreign concept to him. But you also have to acknowledge it ain't the first time he's been shown to con his own people. Like, the Trump University thing should have been it. That should have been it. It's too much. It's this businessman taking this mythology that had been built up about his abilities. It doesn't exist, but people believed it because of TV and commercials and all that. And these people who just desperately wanted to learn to be like him, who respected him above everyone else in the world, put all of the money they had and money they didn't have to learn at his feet, and he robbed them. And we all saw it. He had to pay a fine as a result of it. And millions of Americans just said, that looks like nothing to me. He's still great. I still love him. I still take my money, rich man who doesn't need it, take my money. And I want to give you another example of what that looks like. Victor Amelino, a 70-year-old Californian, yelled "bandits" in this New York Times write-up. He made a $990 online donation to Trump in early September. It recurred 7 more times, adding up to almost $8,000 in just a couple of months. He said, "I'm retired. I can't afford to pay all that damn money." I don't know how he could afford to pay the $990, but they just kept taking it over and over. And let me show you a little bit of visualization of how this actually worked, because it changed a few times as they became more and more desperate. So you can see boxes like this when you go to make the donation that you can check to make it a monthly recurring donation. And just to make it a little bit more convenient, they auto check it for you. So you have to see that and uncheck it, or else they will drain you of every goddamn cent you have. Then they have additional donations for his birthday. What, for cake? He's a billionaire, he doesn't need it anyway. Then they go on to this, where it's going to automatically recur until the election. Then they have a different box, or else they'll, like it's multiple boxes that all accomplish the same thing, taking more of your money. So it does tell you in smaller font, you'll notice, if we could bring this up, you'll see in smaller font that they're gonna deduct $100 automatically on 9/29. But the big bolded stuff is, I need your help to debate him. You can see this one, again, multiple boxes, and the stuff about it being recurring payments is getting smaller and smaller as a part of the message. And this is, again, like if you're a conservative, you're watching this, like, why are you criticizing Trump? I'm never gonna see that because I'm not donating to him. You guys are. This was only ever going to affect people who loved Trump the most, and they took advantage of that. They either thought they were stupid or thought they were gullible, or they thought, hey, maybe we'll just snag a few. And we'll take so much money from them and then eventually have to give back a little bit of it. Because as you can see, the calls for refunds soared once they added that second checkbox. You can see in this chart, every campaign has to refund some money. Sometimes it's if people have donated more than the legal limit or whatever, they just request it. It's like Biden had a little bit. Look at how Trump skyrockets as a direct result of the fraud. Now, that means that those people realized it and hopefully got their money back, but there have to be a bunch that didn't, just got robbed by the guy that they loved. And let's keep it real, probably still love, probably still respect, probably still look up to, even after this experience.
Look, I get it, man. Audible was charging me for like a year, and I had a steady job, and I was like, I don't know, $9.99. I listen to that many audiobooks. No, you don't. And so yeah, everyone check your bank statements. It's tax time. Get your money back. But of course, this was going to happen, and it's so brilliant. This company called WinRed, which was the one that orchestrated all of this for the Trump campaign, they made money on the refunds.
Yeah.
They got money back every time. I'm assuming from the people who donated. Where else is the money gonna come from? I don't know, but they got money, and they're still going. They're still practicing. They were helping Kelly Loeffler's campaign, Purdue's campaign in Georgia. Like they're rampant. They're still there. So tell your friends and family who vote Republican and who get these emails, even if you can't reach them politically, but like check your statements, bro. Read through the fine print, it's bizarre. It's like, oh, did you mean to uncheck that box? Because I feel like maybe you didn't. Maybe you wanna. Do you not wanna not support? Yes, donate. If perhaps check. And you're like, what?
I can simplify it. Never give money to these dishonest people. And for that 4-month period of massive fundraising, right before the election, through all the big lie and all that, you had Republicans from around the country running ads, stand with Trump to stop the steal. Little tiny print. This money's actually going to me, not to him. And it was so many of them, and even Trump stuff. The vast majority of it wasn't even going to his futile court cases. And he was recurring stealing from people. All of those all at once in a couple of different months should result in a couple of years of people not donating to Republicans. That they learn that this is just a massive grift. Yes. Hundreds of millions of dollars of grift. But that lesson, I'll bet every dollar I have, like they were forced to, that lesson will not be learned. And that Republicans will have learned from this. Those double check boxes and everything, Marjorie Greene's gonna have those in her emails in like 5 days, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And you're just gonna have more and more of this sophisticated grift, and the people are gonna be robbed are conservatives. So I guess at the end of the day, it's really their problem to fix, but I care enough about honesty and the truth that I'll at least tee it up for them. Yeah, and Barkley points out in Twitch, it's basically a $50 million interest-free loan at the moment he needed it. Sure, he pays it back later, but he needed the money then. Even though theoretically he doesn't need the money since he swears he's a billionaire. Certainly doesn't act like it, the way he robs people. Anyway, Francesca, that is all the time we have for the full show. That doesn't mean we're done though, because in just a little bit, we're gonna be reconvening to record our top 10 list for the week, which is available as always, as it has been for a few months. So our tier 2 and tier 3 YouTube members. We had a request from a member for a food related top 10 list. So we're gonna be doing the top 10 foods most responsible for the pandemic 15. I can only speak for myself. We'll see if any of these are representative of you as well. But yeah, I need to explain and start to contextualize what has happened to me over the course of this. And this is the beginning of that research. So Francesca and I are gonna be putting that together soon. Anyway, Francesca, where can people go watch more of you before later on today they see more of you on with Anna Kasparian on the Young Turks?
Oh, thanks so much, John. Yeah, you can watch the Bitchuation Room podcast live every Sunday, 5-8 Eastern, and you can watch back on my YouTube channel at Franifio. Listen as a podcast, and just follow me on all the things at Franifio. So,
sounds good. Sounds good.
Thanks, John.
Okay, everyone. And thank you, Francesca. Thank you, all of you in the audience. We're gonna go record the top 10 list. Hope that you enjoy it. Until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.